you that don't know who the heck I am, I'm Bill Fisher. Sean and I worked together about 20 years ago on a game called EverQuest. That's probably why you're here, because this is all about EverQuest and other kinds of cool stuff in MMOs. I worked on Scars of Velious. I did some stuff in Luclin after the team shipped the game. Not all the features necessarily. I worked on some EverQuest 2, some EverQuest Online Adventures, Planes of Power Prepo. I was ultimately lead game designer on Vanguard Saga of Heroes. I was on Rift at Triana Worlds. I was everything from a contract game designer to the executive producer. I ran a couple of other titles there that were being built before we shut down, slash sold, slash all that sort of stuff. So I've been around for a while, and I've done a lot of different stuff, some of which you'll like, some of which you won't.
I've got the feeling a lot of it is stuff I like. The era that you were on EQ is definitely loved. That was sort of that a lot of people come in that era where a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia.
Oh yeah.
And then there have been a ton of questions.
Some of the best zones ever in the game. I'll still stand to that.
Yeah, for sure. And then they've had questions about the other games and other companies as well. That's why I was like, you may have to come on more than once. So we'll see. We'll see what we get through this afternoon. How long do you have? I've asked this in the past.
I slotted in about 2 hours for this.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on the time then.
Want to spend time with you. It just depends on if my work Slack starts exploding for some reason. Everything looks good right now, so
cool.
We're good.
All right, and I may make you a little bit bigger on the screen, just again in keeping the VOD in mind. So I'll play around with that, and then we'll get rolling. All right, so I'll keep an eye on chat for questions. You keep an eye on chat for questions. There's been the back and forth in chat about Luclin versus Luclin versus what was the other just god awful one? There was some. It's Luclin, guys.
Of Luclin. It's Luclin. I don't care if anyone else ever on the EverQuest team later says it's something different. They're wrong.
Yeah,
they're 100% wrong. I was in the room where it happened. It's.
This is what I've always loved about you as well.
Trost could probably come in and be like, no, it's Luclin. But Trost was off the team by the time we were actually making Space Cats on the Moon, which Amanda did the pitch for.
I didn't realize that. I did not realize that.
Over the weekend, Amanda, I think it's Polk now, did the pitch for that.
Right on.
Yeah, she did the pitch for that over a weekend. And then people came in and were like, oh, wow, we're making Luclin, and it's Space Cats on the Moon. Cool.
Yeah, I think...
I was on other projects at that time, so I was like, oh, okay.
Dude, I was so just like heads down trying my damnedest to get on the team that I missed a lot of those types of conversations during that period.
Yeah, I mean, that time period is really a blur. All of my time at SOE was a blur. I was either 19 turning 20 or 20 turning 21 when I started. I had moved from Washington State all the way down to San Diego, and my first day on the job, I remember this very clearly. I go to the front desk, and they're like, "It's like, oh, I'm Bill Fisher. I'm here to start my job." And they scurry off through the locked gates and doors and stuff. And then a little while later, I think it was Jeff Butler comes down, and he's like, "Oh wow, we forgot we hired you." There was no computer set up for me on my first day. It was pretty rad. They literally gave me a pad of paper and a pencil and said, write an epic quest. And I was like, what's an epic quest? And they were like, you tell us.
That's the test.
That was the test, yeah. And here's your cube. You're going to be sharing it with this other guy. Are you ready for this? I'm like, yes, sure, I guess so. I play a lot of EverQuest. I love EverQuest. So let's do this.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. I feel like I ran into something similar during Luclin, where it was like, oh, we need a Beast Lord epic quest. Have fun. I'm like, that's so much responsibility. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no. So like for people asking in chat, I did the Warrior, Necro, and Bard epic quests. That was my first task on the live team before we started up Velious. there was a bunch of other like live work cleanup stuff that I wanted to do as a player, like coming in. Kedge Keep had a bunch of problems with Finnegal. Like on the server I played on Vishon. I was eventually in Fires of Heaven. There was problems with, it was where all the Japanese players at the time played. And they would get very competitive, right? Guilds are very competitive about who can kill what spawns, right? So there used to be a way at Finnegal where you could just keep spawning all of his ads. So like if you want to be a jerk and not let the other group kill them, you could just keep spawning ads, and there'd be like 500 of those seahorses down there. So I like my third or fourth day after getting access to the database and everything, I fixed that, because yeah, that kind of pissed me off. I couldn't just kill Finnegal when I wanted to.
Yeah. So you've got a number of, what I'll do is every once in a while I'll break to look at some questions. Mods are sending me questions right now in Discord, so I'll be looking down at that. I'll also be scanning chat for events like Tom Toby has just arrived. And so I think, Bill, Tom may have been after your time. I worked with Tom, and you're still there, aren't you, Tom? Tom came in. I know you did the Froglock animations when we did Legacy of Akesha. And Scorn just gave Tom a tier 1 sub. Thank you, Scorn, for your generosity. You started on Pop. That's right, Tom. Cool.
I was still there when Pop pre-pro started. I think I wrote a couple of documents, and then I was gone.
Yeah, because you guys at that point you were heading over to Sigil, right?
Yes, yeah, we split off and did that whole thing. Like my last week at Sony Online, like I knew I was going to be leaving in a not too distant future, and I think it was either Rich or Fister. I don't remember who came to me and was like, "Come back to the EQ1 team. We have this zone that needs to get done," because we didn't ship it with Luclin, which was Vexthal, unfortunately. And I still regret this to this day. Vexthal was done by me in 1 week.
That's right.
Before I quit. And then I remember emailing a variety of people on the team because I made a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake, which was putting blind on those NPCs initially. And the tuning wasn't great because it had never been tested. Yeah, but I remember mailing Rich and some other people and like not getting a response of like, "Hey, just played this on the live servers. Maybe we should remove blind. This is a bad play experience." And then just crickets, because I'm pretty sure a number of people felt at that moment in time like betrayed by me leaving or whatnot. I mean, we're a pretty tight knit group, so
I don't think that was it, because as you said, I remember that period. I think there was just during that period as you guys were leaving, there was a lot of like, oh shit, what are we going to do, right? Because
yeah,
with the exception of Rich, I don't think we had any other experienced designers on the team. Like that's how I got my job, basically.
I remember there being
because as you guys left,
training a dude. I don't remember his name. He ended up sharing an office with me for a while. I don't remember who was in the office with us. It was when I came back onto the team for that. But he was like an experienced guy from games. But I literally don't remember him. I remember going to lunch with him. I just don't remember his name. It's 20 years ago.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll have to think on that one as well, because I'm trying to think of the team back then. I remember Rich was the guy with experience. The rest of us were like apprentices that just got hired, and we kind of ran with it. I got a couple questions from chat, and I'm also looking at some other feedback there. I saw some like, oh wows, 1 week to do Vexal. We probably have some stories about other quick turnaround zones that have been done.
Yeah. So you guys might remember the revamp of Kazakh Thule back in the day. That was after Velious, after Luclin, during Luclin time period. I don't remember. I remember coming back onto the team for a while, and they were like, we wanted. I don't remember exactly how it came down. I think it came down from Smed or like just cascaded down through the stuff of like, hey, it'd be really cool if we redid a zone and made a higher level. And we're like, we can do that. And I think Fister was like, how fast can you guys get it done? And we were like, well, if we start right now, we can have it done tomorrow. And it was 4 of us in a room redoing that. I think you actually weren't in the room the whole time, because it was me and Steve and Rich were in a room together for a big.
Yeah, you guys had office,
and you were coming in and out of that room. But Rich did all the rewards, I remember. and it was obviously playtesting it and stuff. And Steve did all the events, and I did like 90% of the population and monster creation, and you were busting out on that same stuff and just filling in wherever. But that was 24 hours of our lives that we just gave to EverQuest players.
Yeah, man. The 24-hour revamp was that's interesting times. It was cool that we could actually get it done. We did that again later on. We did it in 2 days though. Rich and I redid Chardock in a similar way. Half the people, twice the time. Thorazin and Tom Toby, thank you for the follows. I'm going to read out a couple of questions that got sent over. Prime Balls, did you change your name and just add Prime to it? So Prime Balls and Mouth. I only have 2 questions and I'm about to duck into a meeting. Were you expecting APW to be cleared so quickly when it first launched? Also, who thought that the Strung Moss loot spawn timer and drop rate was a good combination?
I don't know the answer to the second one. My answer to the first one was I was probably gone by the time APW actually hit the servers. Andrew Krasnick, an amazing game designer that's gone very far in the industry at this point in time, I'm very proud of. He was the guy that was primarily behind that, and I was, giving advice where I could as a lead and whatnot. But I mean, my expectation with raids is players are going to beat them pretty much instantly, unless you put in some hard gear checks. Nature finds a way. Nature absolutely finds a way.
Mm.
I mean, I've seen raids downed on day 1 or within the first hour or 2. It's not uncommon. It's not strange to me. It just depends on what philosophy you want to go with, right? Like if you're going to put the super hard checks in, yeah, you can. I can make you wait, as well as I can make you, but that doesn't necessarily make good gameplay or a great experience.
Cool. Let's see, Balls. We'll see if you're satisfied with that answer later. He's in here regularly. He'll let us know. Bully Q. Bill, can you tell us about the idea behind Siren the Lunatic?
So Siren the Lunatic was named after, I've forgotten his name. He was a designer that came up out of Ops of all places. I can picture him in my mind.
Yes,
I don't want to
picture him
poorly of anyone, but he made some poor choices with stuff happening on the test server at some point in time, and I think that's what caused his exit of the company.
I was wondering what it was. I just remember he wasn't there.
I'm pretty sure he made some poor life choices of things you're not supposed to do on live or other servers. I don't know his name. I'm not going to name and shame, but it was based around him. He liked to RP a lot also on the test server, and I don't think it was him that made that character. That was, I believe, made by Tom Wells, probably. I think Tom did Sky. I'm not sure. It's been so long.
Interesting.
I don't remember who actually did it, but the character was based on him, and he was just a representation of kind of the RP of that dude. I mean, Siren the Lunatic was a crazy dude.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was very much like Siren the Lunatic, which a lot of us kind of were like Siren the Lunatic back then when we weren't sleeping, right? I mean,
yeah, it was crazy times. It's hard to tell the story of those times, not have it seem sensationalized, and also not paint maybe an inappropriate picture. But it was very Wild West and adrenaline filled.
It was. If you made it into a TV show, people would think it is completely satire. They would think that this is all a joke. I mean, yeah, parts of it are hilarious, but I remember going to work on EverQuest and working anywhere between 14 and 16 hours a day on the regular, then going home and playing EverQuest for another 4 to 6 hours, maybe sleeping, and then ending up back in the office again. And that wasn't like people were telling me, and I mean, there were times they were telling us, but most of the times people weren't telling you, this is the timetable, this is you need to be here, butts and seats. I mean, I remember a couple of times of esprit de corps crunching, but a lot of the crunching was kind of self-inflicted, at least for me, of wanting to get features in or wanting to make the zone better or not knowing how to use the tools enough to do it. Like, we jack-hacked so much stuff. Like when you start talking about how things were scripted on EverQuest 1 way back in the day, like people think I'm just I'm making it up, like invisible men shouting to invisible men, causing guys to despawn, which is the only event which happens, right? It was not a scripting system. Like I've talked to other designers that were on the product much later, right? Like Ian Noble, great guy, right? But like when he was on the product, there was a scripting system.
Right.
Right? Like the stuff that Steve Burke pulled off, the stuff that we collectively did back then without that it blows my friggin' mind still. Like,
Yeah, it's
I will
crazy.
tell junior designers that stuff now, and they're like, that doesn't seem right or possible. I'm like, well, buckle up, kiddo, because many things are possible when you're super motivated and you love the product you're working on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to hit some more of these questions. Frank the Bank, to your point, you may want to repost it. I'm going to go down the list. I'm just catching up on questions. So it may be in here, though at a glance I don't see it. So catching up now. Reindeer Knight asked, did you work on the Bard Epic Quest?
Yes, I did every aspect of it.
And then there's a comment that darn White Dragon Scale took you so long to get. And then that I think leads to Frank's question as well. When you did the Bard Epic, do you remember Eldrig the Old and Skyfire Mountains?
No, I do not remember. I unfortunately do not remember something from 20 years ago.
I've had that problem a lot.
I'm getting older, right? I am 40 years old now, which is not that old, but the gaming industry does age you. I know you're the old man here. I'm just the person that was on EQ before you.
Well, it's funny because someone in chat earlier said they were like, how old was he when he worked on the game? He looks like he's 25.
Yeah, I was 19 turning 20 or 20 turning 21. I don't remember which. I mean, I remember that I couldn't get a 401k through Sony because I was too young at the time. Like there's an age you have to be. It might be 20 or 21. I don't remember which. So after several months, I was able to actually get the 401k.
That's crazy. But it was, I mean, it seemed like there were a number of young people, but yeah, you're definitely really young. And to your point,
You know, I mean,
guys, I'll get back to the question for
Jeff
sure.
Butler
But
has told me, like he told Brad at one point in time, like, I don't know if we should hire this kid. I have D&D characters older than him.
right on. And to your point though about playing, you bring up a great point that comes up in here a lot. People ask, so did you play when you worked? And it's like, dude, we worked a ton, and then went home and played a ton, and then went back to work.
That was our lives. I mean, we were a bunch of 20-something dudes that were working on their dream game. Like, I've loved every product I've worked on since then, but there's nothing compares in the same way to, when I got into the industry, when I worked on EverQuest. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it's never been the same. I mean, for better and for worse, obviously. Like there's plenty of terrible things that went on, but there was certainly an adrenaline high and just a connection with it. Everything was so. I don't even have words to describe it, guys.
I could only imagine. It was the closest thing I could think of. It's probably what it felt like to be in a certain band during a period when like that scene is first popping up, right? It's like being a member of Minor Threat in DC when it's popping up, or being Metallica in LA when that's popping up. Like, not to say we were rock stars, but it was just this constant, your passion is what you did all the time, and there's so much energy and potential built up.
Yeah, and so like my situation when I moved down, my older brother, who also played EverQuest with me, he was like, I'm gonna move down with you, and he works in kitchen and stuff, and I'm gonna, I'll get a job and we'll be there together and stuff. You've never lived alone. And then he ended up not getting a job. So I was paying on my amazing $28,000 a year salary for a place to live in San Diego for me and my brother, and paying for everything. And he was playing EverQuest all day. So that's how I got into Fires of Heaven on Vishon. I was in what I would consider the actual Uber Guild. I mean, come on, all you guys at Blizzard and stuff that were in Afterlife and whatever, or Legacy of Steel. I mean, cool beans, bros. But no, I just like to talk a little shit with that. I was a minor part in FOH. I mean, mostly in there because my brother would 2-box me at times. Prior to that, I ran a guild as well and stuff like that. We were a pretty minor guild. A lot of good friends that ended up going into FOH as well later on. But yeah.
Well,
Alex Fuhrer was my guild leader. I had phone calls with him a couple of times where we would be having a debate on the live floor. And I was like, well, I've got his friggin' phone number. Do you want me to just call Alex and ask him the question? Which he didn't know who I was until way after I'd been in the guild for a while. Like way after. I think it was at a fanfare. A bunch of us got together, and I remember getting pretty sloshed with Alex and like Sean the Scaled Claw. Well, he wasn't drinking because he was like literally 12 at the time.
yeah.
And my brother and a bunch of other people and Brad and all kinds of great stuff. Yeah, those are some crazy times. So yeah, I hope that gives me enough street cred to those of you that play the game. Yes, I played the damn game, guys.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about street cred. You're good here. And thank you guys for the Rockstar comments earlier. Makes me feel good. So back to questions. EverQuest Forever says, whose idea was it to remove Howling Orb from BT 1.0? That may not be a question for Bill. He's gone at that point. We'll have to ask Rich when he gets in here. Save that question. Ask Rich Waters when he's here. He'll probably know. Shaka Brain, maybe a dumb question, but were you guys actually designing and developing these features or designing? So do you mean were we programming it or were we just designing?
We didn't just write stuff on paper and have people do it. That's not how things worked. We had the tool set that we had, and we made what we could out of the tool set. So like for myself and for Sean, as far as I know, you never did any art, right? So like there would be a general like write up for the expansion, right? So like when I got there, Velious had a document that was written originally by Bill Trost describing what Velious was supposed to be. And then, kind of the high level version of what the zones were. And then individual zones were eventually tossed out to different designers on the team. I think Bill Coyle might have been the one handing it out. I remember having a meeting a couple of weeks in of like, who wants to take? No. I remember having a meeting out front actually with the content guys, and Jeff just kind of like listing out zone names, like who wants this, who wants that. And I remember standing up and like he says Temple of Ishan, it's supposed to be the highest level raid zone. And I said, yep, I'll do that. That's me. I'll do that one. Kale Drakale, the city of giants. Yep, I'm doing that one. Yep. And then later on, I got Velk's Lab. I inherited it actually from Siren the Lunatic because it didn't get finished. So that became 100% mine. But basically, it would go from that high level write up. The artists would do the layouts back in the day, like with minimal design input actually back then. Because the original EQ1 art tool, it wasn't like Maya or 3ds Max.
I've been trying to describe it to people. I've tried to describe it to people.
Imagine, like, I never used it, but this is kind of the description I would give it. Imagine having to build a house literally out of bricks, and all of the bricks have to connect together, and there's no undo. And then when you're done with it, lighting takes like 6 weeks to do. Like we had machines running just for lighting that would take 3 to 6 weeks running. Like, oh my God, I hope the power supply doesn't stop. That changed after Velious. I think that changed for Luclin. It was a big feature that got added.
Yeah.
3ds Max got added. 3ds Max, Kelsey was testing it during Velious, and I remember he was because Bill Coyle actually did have a lot of input on the layout of the Dwarf City. And
hold on 1 second, Bill.
Yeah.
I tried to make something better.
Oh no.
And then I may have made it worse. Try again.
Testing. Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay, guys, what I tried to do there was turn off the ducking because I realized I might have been talking over him and probably smashing his input. So what I'll do is not do what I just did, and I'll just shut up. I'll wave maybe at you to let you know when I'm going to interrupt.
You attempted to tune the game, and you ruined it all.
And Jasmine just told me there's a German word for that. Verschlimmbessern. So yeah, I screwed it up by trying to make it better. Sorry, chat. Sorry, Bill. Both of us sound perfect. Thank you, Vulork.
Awesome.
You're flattering.
So 3ds Max was, Kelsey was the test bed for it, and I don't remember the engineer working on making the importer work for it.
Bye, Tom.
Such a game changer. Such a game changer for the art team. Like, ridiculous game changer. Like, I don't think those 3 and 6 months expansions you guys ended up doing later would have been humanly possible with the original art tool set. So TLDR, artists made the layouts with that really terrible original tool, and designers went in and did all of the what I would call population, right? All of the placement of every single spawn point. A designer at that point in time was completely responsible for every aspect of the zone, from lore to itemization to the difficulty of the monsters. There was generally a spell dude or a people that had access to the spell database. And you might go like, I shared a cube with Javier. And during my time period, Javi was the spell guy. So I could just turn to him and be like, well, I'm doing this thing in TOV. I need X and Y. And he'd be like, number one, shut the fuck up, Bill. Number two, maybe I'll get to that. Okay, here it is. Go kill yourself. No, yeah. I loved him. He's actually
he was fun.
Javier.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's friggin' awesome. I'm so happy for him.
He's been a doctor for a little while. When I saw that, I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. Not shocked, but yeah, man, it's super cool. Bill, I've got a long list of questions that I'm going to start powering through, or chat's going to revolt on us. Chat, I'm aware of your questions. We got about at least 10 or 12 lined up here. Epic asked, what was the intent behind the sleeper fight? How did it come about? I remember it was such chaos back then.
You will have to ask John Capozzi about that, Kendrick. He was the guy that did Sleeper's Tomb. I'm not going to speak for him. This is my recollection of 20 years ago, right? The intent was to have this really cool event where you awaken the sleeper, and he's never intended to die. He's not supposed to die. Like, when Conquest did that, that was a thing. There were problems. Yeah, he was not meant to die. He was meant to go and rampage the zones, and it was supposed to be kind of this world event that people get to experience, from what I understand. But you should definitely get Capozzi on here and ask him that question, because that was him, right? Like, again, he owned that zone, so it didn't matter who on the team wanted to have input on that, unless it was Jeff as the producer or Brad coming in as the EP and VP. The designer that owned it.
Yeah. So it's funny. One of the things that's been really cool about doing this stream and having these discussions and having the questions come in, or people will mention something, and as soon as you said Capozzi, I was like, because I was sitting in CS when all the shit went down with Sleeper, and Jeff ran over and everybody ran over. I was trying, like, as soon as you said Capozzi, he materialized over the shoulder of Paul, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There are a lot of Luclin questions about stuff that I know Capozzi worked on, so I've got to track him down as well.
Yeah, I watched some of the VODs yesterday, and like the killing of was it Seru? So I'm pretty sure that actually was Fires of Heaven. I wasn't online for that, but I remember it being described as a commando raid where people rappelled in from the ceiling and then ganked him. And I do remember Rich changing it to all the loot to such and such of sad exploitation. I remember that.
That's right.
So I think my brother was actually in on that kill on his wizard, but I was not there. My character could have potentially been there, but I wasn't there. Because I was a cleric, so two boxing a cleric ain't too bad for somebody else to do.
Not that anybody would ever share their account information if they're in a raiding guild. That would be against terms and conditions, but hey. So let's see, Vulork. Was Blade of Carnage revamped from 15? Some of these questions are very specific, but I'll ask them.
First fanfare I went and talked at where I remember being hung over because a bunch of the White Wolf guys had taken us out at a place called Bowhangers. And then me and I think Lawrence had to give a talk on items. And I remember like having one of my first ever hangovers while having to give that talk on loot and itemization. Anyways, continue the question though.
Yes, and always I learned always avoid the White Wolf guys during those events. Oh my god, that was painful. So Rulor could ask, was Blade of Carnage revamped from 1523 to 1520, adding Enraging Blow before Luclin release?
No idea.
No idea on that one. We will keep digging for that answer for you. Ixar Monkey, who made the sound effects for the Boglings in Echo Caverns? It's literally the funniest sound whenever they get hit by melee.
That's a great question. I remember that at Velious, sometime after I started, actually, we hired a new guy to make audio for EverQuest, and he did all the composing for Velious as well. And I think he continued on after with that. So I can imagine this guy. I can imagine being in his office at one point in time. It was over by Brad's office, and talking to him about stuff. So I would assume it was him, but long time ago. He was an older gentleman, not like old gentleman, but older gentleman. So he's probably retired by now. I'm not sure who that would be. If you look in the manual, you can probably find who the audio.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Because I have the manual somewhere. I'm not going to go look for it right now, but I got it.
Yeah, I've got a ton of stuff in storage in Austin that I'm going to have to get through. We're gonna have some giveaways because I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So new question. Hashpipe asks, how were you able to turn whole zones over in a day, week, but every launch was a bust? Oh, well, I'm going to chime in on that comment. What was the issue with servers back then, and are they comparable to current situations in MMOs? So, Bill, I'll let you go first, and then I'm going to throw in a little bit on that one as well.
I mean, you could do a zone in a day with no iteration, and it would be as good as what you made it.
Right.
I mean, you garbage in, garbage out. Like, to make something good and fun generally takes iterations in front of people. Like this is kind of how I put game design when I talk to new folks to the industry or folks that are interested in getting in. If you did it right the first time, you got lucky.
Yeah.
And you can increase your luck with experience and knowledge, but if you did it right the first time, you still got lucky. To this day, if I go in and I do a feature or I touch something, I'm like, whew, that was actually fun. Wow. Great. How much do I need to improve it now, right? It's all this iterative process and make it better, make it better, make it better. So, right, that zone that we did in 24 hours, that was a roll of the dice, whether that was going to be fun or not, because we sure couldn't play it. We had our best approximations of knowing what those hit point values and damage values were going to mean, right, which gave us obviously an edge over
yeah.
weren't playing as hardcore as we were, because there were people on the team that played EverQuest, but they didn't play EverQuest.
Yeah.
Like I remember that was part of the reason why I got pulled back over after Luclin shipped to revamp stuff and to do Vexthal, is because like people that had been on the team actually as long as I had didn't know how to do itemization properly, like what players actually wanted. They were smart people, they were great people, but they literally didn't have the context of a high-end player and what they were looking for out of an item.
Well, we were building multiple games at the same time, right? Like we were building, because the raid game was so much different than like how do you make good, and I know trade skills advance with the raid game and more applicable and stuff like that, but how do you create like this cool RP experience and really focus on maybe trade skills before they're more integrated into the high end, etc., or some of the other stuff versus like it's a different type of experience when you're doing something for 100 people.
Of the game, having context for the entire game was very difficult. So I'm not trying to slam anyone when I'm saying that. I'm saying like I was brought on for a specific purpose, right, to fill that role. And I do remember it being weird to like be mentoring a person that started around the same time I started in a thing that felt like, oh, this is every day. Like this is an everyday task. This should not require any thinking whatsoever. But I was also, like I said, 20 years old and asshole. So
Me too. I was like 24, 25. Like I tell people all the time, like, you don't realize I'm pretty mellow now, but man, I was a high strung asshole back then. I remember the
yeah, I mean, dude, both of us, like I know, like you can ask Scott this, right? Like he and I had overlap at Sony for a little while, right? But not a ton of overlap, like 4 or 5 months sort of overlap. And he was like, I remember talking to him about starting at Tryon, and like, not sure if I'm just gonna have to fire you in the first 3 months, dude. So let's bring you on his contract, right? Like, legitimately, you know.
Well, you've always been very open with your opinion, Bill, and I respect that about you.
I can be a polarizing individual, but I have certainly mellowed out over the years. But man, that's something that only really comes with time. At least for me, it's only just taken time and age and all that sort of stuff. Like,
Same here. All right, another question. And yes, the guy just fell, but you don't really die when you fall off of the treehouse anymore, so he'll be fine. Let's see. Getting back to your question, extremities for Bill. Oh, wait. Before that, just on the last comment, sorry, Hashpipe. Guys, I remember when we brought Legacy of Akesh out. Quick turnaround. We had the highest concurrent player count that we had ever had, 108,000 concurrent players, which was a big deal for us at the time. The servers didn't come down for a week. Server instability, that's not a requirement to launching a product. I think we got better and better at that. So what's going on now? We'll have to talk to the new devs in terms of the issues and stuff. But a lot of it, guys, it's a 21-year-old game. It doesn't get easier as you go when you're maintaining these things.
No, maintaining is harder.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Everything just gets crusty and old and
fragile.
Oh, we think it should work that way. Oh, we'd like to use a newer version of Visual Studio. Nope.
Or why does the script that used to trigger these other scripts that then triggered the scripts that are critical just break? And does anybody know where this script even came from when you're like looking at bringing servers up and stuff? We'll dig into that more with people as they come in, because we'll ask some more tech people, but it's not easy.
Dude, even back then though, like I don't know if this was gone by the time you were doing stuff, Sean, but there were machines where you literally could not export your zone from a data standpoint, or it would just come out completely corrupted.
Yes.
We didn't know what caused it. We literally didn't know what caused it. So like once you found out you had a bad box for that, it was just like, can't export from that one anymore.
Yep.
Good luck. Wish I had a second box, but I don't now.
New question. So for Bill, what do you think went wrong with Vanguard for a game that had so much world size, incredible classes, open world dungeons that were incredibly massive, etc., etc. Even with all its problems, Vanguard had one of the best worlds I've played in. The sheer size, scope, design of the dungeons, open world camps, etc. were all so much fun and well done.
I think I could write a book on, in retrospect, what went wrong with Vanguard. There's no one individual person. There's no one individual thing. Everyone cared so incredibly deeply about it. Everyone in leadership, a lot of the boots on the ground cared super deeply. The scope of what we were trying to do was to a degree insane. That's a huge portion of it. The fact that it actually did ship at all is, I'm still proud of that fact, because if you guys remember that time period, there was plenty of MMOs that did not ship, that just straight up, like Kickstarter today, right? Like straight up just never happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the question is a little bit too broad, and I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I'll throw myself under the bus a lot for that. I pushed back on some areas, didn't push back hard enough on others. But yeah, it was a big product and a lot of time and a changing marketplace. I mean, we're hitting that transition to the World of Warcraft era, and I mean, World of Warcraft is the evolution of EverQuest in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Some people will say like, oh no, it's easy or whatever, right? And I'm not going to say that blindsided us, but the game we were making, and I even had to tell designers this, right? Like, the vision for the game is not that. The vision for the game is this, and we are paid to make that vision, right? So we can advise against X or Y or get this feature added, but at the end of the day, as a designer in any field, you are there to make something that someone's asking you to make, or you're there to entertain somebody, right? So there's some amount of getting past the EQ1 era of those early days of part of it's a job, right? So I don't know how to other like really articulate this as best I can, because
I think you've done a good job, dude.
Anyone under the bus, I'm going to throw myself under it first, right? Like, a lot of stuff went wrong. Had we all been sleeping insane, and I mean, so this is something people we haven't gone into, right? So I played MUDs with Brad. That's Brad McQuaid. That's how I got my start in the industry, right? So when I was like 13 years old, I met him. He was in my guild. We were part of the same guild on Toro Mud back in the day. And at some point in time, he's talking to us, and he's like, "Well, I'm not going to be around much anymore. I've got this job thing that's starting up. It's really, really cool." And a couple of years later, we find out, oh, making a graphical MUD. Like, oh, what the heck, right? And then like other people start disappearing from the MUD, like Ryan Palacio, one of the original EQ designers, came from the same place. Like, he went to work on it. But I'd had that connection with Brad from the MUD, and when EverQuest came out, I remember being in a mall with my brother at like Babbage's or something, and seeing it sitting on the shelf. And I'm still thinking to myself, like, who wants a graphical MUD? That's stupid. I love mudding. Like, I used to dream in text. And I see it sitting on the shelf, and I point to it and I say, "Hey, I know some guys that worked on that." And my brother, who's never played a computer game in his life, he played video games, all console, was like, "Oh, if you know some guys that worked on it, let's buy it." And that's how I got into playing EverQuest. I reconnected with a bunch of other friends from the MUD. Eventually reconnected with Brad. I was playing with him on launch, shortly after launch on Vision. And I had some opportunities to interview for EQ2. Ended up not getting hired on for that because, not to sound bitter, a person that 3 years before that had no experience in video game design said, "This guy doesn't have any experience, so let's not hire him." So yeah, that was cool. But I was on a Vox raid. I was leading a Vox raid, living at home, and a guild member goes link dead, and I'm like, "Okay, crap, we got to wait for the pull." And my mom shouts like, "Hey, Bill," or Billy, whatever she's calling me, "you got a phone call here about EverQuest." And I'm like, "Oh shit, it's probably the guy that went link dead, and he's going to tell me he can't get back online." And no, it's not. It's Jeff Butler. He says, "Hi, is this Bill Fisher?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is Bill Fisher. What is this?" Well, so I'm Jeff Butler. I'm the producer of EverQuest, and Brad told me that I should hire you. Do you want to come work on EverQuest? And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "When can you start?" And I was like, "How about a month from now?" And then I packed all my shit together and moved down and started working on EverQuest. And no, Raid was not canceled. Killed Vox. But yeah, that's how I got my start in the industry. I knew Brad. I came on as a quote unquote friend of Brad. It was a little bit of stigma to work through, right? Because it was viewed as nepotism. But let me tell you, I worked my friggin' ass off to get through and over that. And I became, more and more friends with him in real life, obviously, right? Once I was working down there and stuff, he knew I was a kid that had just moved down there. And we played games together every friggin' night. We played EQ together. We played other stuff together. We did all of that stuff. Between everything else that was going on at SOE, right? He always looked out for me. Sorry, gets a little...
No, it's cool, man. There definitely been some feels moments on this stream already. I had to literally roll away from the camera.
Yeah.
And so if you need to bounce sideways, it's been done before. I've set precedent. And it took me a few minutes. But yeah, man, it's important part of your life, and definitely
Yeah,
makes sense.
if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Absolutely.
I miss him so much. I'll be right back. I don't want to
Yeah,
too
dude.
much right
No. Take your time. I will handle some business in the meantime with you guys that are being extremely rad. Tejed, thank you for your follow. It's been 20 minutes, but I didn't forget you, buddy. Lord Liono, thank you for your kindness in gifting the sub to Reindeer Knight. Balls, I will say your full name for this one. Balls and Mouth gave out 5 tier 1 community subs. Thank you very much. A lot of love in chat. Thank you guys. Dude, it's tough. It is a tough one. That, I think that period in our lives, and especially for Bill, you know what I mean? Like, none of us would be where we're at. Just like the memorial says, like, we would not be here without him. We would not be here without the game. And it's weird. Like, hindsight is what it is. But yeah, I wish I could go back in time and really fully appreciate the opportunity and the people that made it possible back then. So EverQuest Forever, congrats. Big Bad Jeff, congrats. Chinchilla, Cayenne, Oin32, congrats all of y'all.
Hey, I'm a little more composed, so.
Right on, dude. Like I said, I had to, and I wasn't that close, but just the idea of the opportunity, like when it hit me, when it came up in chat, like I just had to roll off and take a few minutes. We are going to get into some other questions. And I think that'll help, right? So Hyperplasma Shortcake said, what was something you wanted to design in EQ but wasn't possible with the tech at the time?
Ooh. A lot of what I wanted to do back then was very based on playing Toral Mud and whatnot. So Toral Mud was Faerun themed. It was Forgotten Realms themed. It was amazing. I loved it. I mean, I lived it. I had 365 days played in 2 years, so 50% of my time was doing that in over 2 years. So there was this amazing thing in Jotunheim, right, which is the land of the frost giants, which was an invasion of the fire giants. So this might start sounding familiar to people for some other games I've worked on, but that zone would actually change and be invaded by fire giants. Like you'd be doing it. It was a rare pop. Like it wasn't just like a rare pop mob. It was a rare pop version of the entire friggin' zone, right? So you go into Jotunheim and you're like, holy crap, the fire giants from Muspelheim are invading. And there was this much more amazing loot, much harder raid mobs, all this stuff. Like, and we're talking raid on a mud back then when it was like 20 plus person raid, all this sort of stuff. And I always wanted to make that invasion in EverQuest. And had I had the time, I probably could have. And we did stuff. Steve did stuff similar to that invasion, like the Ring War and stuff. I just never got a chance to do it myself. I mean, I had a lot of other stuff on my plate at the time, right?
Yeah.
I had TOV and Kale and Velks and a bunch of other crap going on. But yeah, that invasion is something I would, it's one of the reasons why when Jeff said, Kale, City of the Giants, I was like, that's me. Yes, I need to work on that. I need to do that. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I never got to do, right? I never got to do like an invasion of Kale or an invasion using the Giants like that. And thankfully, Steve got to do that. It was awesome. So,
right on. Again, chat, just scrolling through. Thank you guys for your support. I can't thank you individually. It'd take a while, but definitely saw it and appreciate it. There's a question that came up beforehand. It was given to me before we started. I want to make sure I don't miss it, and then I'll get back into the questions from chat. Zaid God asked, An unfinished quest with Santalak, the dragon that guards COV on Western Wastes. If you're allied faction and you tell Santalak the king is dead, he congratulates you and demands proof, but I've never found a head that he will accept as a quest turn-in. Can you think of anything there?
I mean, we ended up putting it. So you're talking about the dragon outside of TOV, the Guardian. If you had enough, is that who Zonalak was? Like it was. Yelenak was the king of the dragons, right? Right in the actual zone. Yeah, because I mean, we ended up. Fun story related to this. Let's back up a second. There's a quest to turn in the head of whichever faction leader you killed to get a reward, right? So you hand in the head of the dragon to King Tormax, and you can get an item back, right?
That's right.
I think it was 2 weeks before launch that was added, because Jeff was walking by and was like, "Hey, have you added the quests to the leaders of the factions?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Jeff?" And he's like, "Didn't you see me talk about that last month on PC Gamer?" I'm like, "No, I've been too busy working." He's like, "Well, I guess you guys better go implement it." Like there was no Jira, there was no task track, there was no nothing. It was literally like, you didn't see that? Like maybe I'm misremembering. That's how I recall it.
No,
didn't sleep much.
There was a schedule looking thing on the whiteboard outside of Jeff's office until someone leaned up against it, I think in the pizza line, and wiped most of it off. That is the only schedule I remember. Oh wait, but that was Luclin. That wasn't even Velious. So who knows?
So I mean, we realized we needed to do that anyways. Like we were like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense to do. Like I think what he originally had pitched to them and had imagined and probably had on a schedule somewhere that never got communicated was right, like actually having a quest line you could do with them, like a longer quest line sort of thing. And we definitely didn't deliver that. So we met the checkbox of what's on the back of the box by saying, oh, take the head of the other guy, get the reward. And then if you want to hand in any of those rewards to swap out which version of it is, go for it, right? So like you get the warrior sword or whatever, hand the warrior sword in, you'll get the wizard hat or whatever it was. I don't remember what they were exactly, but yeah.
Cool. New question. Let's see. Cayenne Tranquil, Bill, who made the original Grieg's End Zone back when it was scary? No static mobs, they were triggered by traps, lots of scary sound effects and emotes as you traveled through the zone.
I wasn't there for that part of Luclin development. I was off on EverQuest 2 and EQOA during that time period.
For some reason, I think that was Kaposi again.
It might have been, or was it Burke?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If it was sneaky,
I don't remember who it was.
Well,
it could have been Dan, right?
Maybe. So I've been trying to get Steve to show up on this thing, and so if we can drag him on here at some point, maybe he'll know. Next question.
I just want to answer this one because Frank the Bank is asking it. When you worked on Velious, did you plan for people to do all 3 factions of quests?
Perfect.
Yes, because I created all of those armor quests and all of that stuff, and I coordinated that amongst the other teams or the other people on the team, like going to Bill Coyle and being like, here's the items you're going to hand out. Here's the gems you need to drop in these zones. Here's the armor pieces you need to drop in your zones, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, did totally plan on people working their way through that progression, which is a little bit against the RP and more for the power gamer, but
Right on. And that was the next question on the list, so thank you for grabbing it. Xbox Fan UK asks, I would like to know who designed West Corona. It was so dead for such a huge zone. By dead, I mean lack of mobs and stuff to do.
Oh, long before my time. That's the original team. So if you could get someone like Ryan Palacio on here or Trost, they could tell you. It could have been Hutch, who unfortunately recently passed away, Mike Hutchinson, one of the original EQ designers. I'm not sure. It's like that time period for me is like another age of legend of original development, right?
Yeah.
Like I know some of the people from it, but a lot of people from that time period definitely got really burned out. And like when I came on board, there weren't a ton of original members, at least on the design side, on the team at that point in time.
Yeah, everybody I knew was basically off on EQ2 or somewhere else at that point.
Yeah.
I knew of, didn't necessarily even know. Let's see, Haslam, Feralist, and RTYT4627. Thank you for your follows. Welcome. BullEQ asks, can you talk about your time working on EQOA? It was an incredible MMO that many people don't get to experience, way ahead of its time for a console game.
Yeah, so I'm not going to take any credit for anything on EQOA. So I came onto the EQOA team, and I think you have Ben Bell on the list to talk to. This is how I remember it, but everything's still a blur. I was on EQ2, which was in super pre-production, and EQOA was going on, and we weren't, as far as I remember, we weren't footing the full bill for EQOA. Like another Sony was footing the bill for it. So we had actual milestones and deliverables that had to be done, and one of their milestones needed population done, right? So I'm a guy that does population. Bill, do you want to come work on this? You're not happy on EQ2 right now. And I was like, hell yeah. So my work was pretty limited, just like populating some early zones to get us to that milestone so they could make it further playable. And then I think that was like 2.5, maybe 3 months at the most of my life. And then I got the call to come back to EverQuest 1. Like there was a strong need for me to come on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so as you mentioned, Ben has expressed interest in coming on, and Jeremy Ellis as well. He had worked on EQOA for a good bit, it seems like. So
he was there for a long time. I think he's the guy that came in when I was like, oh, I got to go back to 1. I'm not sure because him and I remember, him and Lawrence Poe and Amanda Tar at the time, and Ben Bell. Like I remember going to lunch with everyone and like going to get pho and stuff. Like those are the memories I have of that time. I don't have much memory of the work. I have memory of some of the good times with the people, but not that great of the work itself. And somebody's asking, is there an item on Vulak's loot table named after me? No, because I named every item in there, and I named them after other people on the team. And the general rule of thumb was never name something after yourself. Yep. So if there is an item in EQ named after me, it would be after my GM name, which was Breen. So like my character and one of Kaposi's characters are the characters mentioned in the story at the beginning of the Velious manual. John Kaposi wrote that story as the intro. So yeah.
Cool. Bunny asks, which one of you and Lunatic Person was responsible for holes and slidey floors in Velks? She's been asking this all week actually.
This is not my fault. That is a combination, I believe, of Sabrina's and I feel like Lawrence had a hand in it, but Lawrence didn't make it. So Sabrina was the zone artist that made it. If you ever played Star Wars Galaxies, she's also the person that mocapped the dancing for the females.
I forgot about her.
And whatnot. But she was one of the original artists. So she did that. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went down, but it was there when I got the zone. And I pushed back a little bit on it, but I was like, oh, it's within the theme, and this is what EverQuest is about. Let's leave it in. And I had to populate around that. But there was no like changing that would have been not like it is changing stuff in a game now. It would have been like, oh, well, we got to do a full zone export again. Good luck.
Cool. Let's see. Live Acoustic asked another EQOA question. So this may fall into sort of the response from the last time we talked about it. What was it like making zones in EQOA 400 years before the events in EQ?
Yeah, definitely not my bailiwick, unfortunately. I wish I could give you. And did Sony own EQ at the beginning? That's actually an interesting tale. Variant Interactive. So my first paychecks were from Variant Interactive. And shortly after that, it became Sony Online Entertainment. But before that, and before it was Red Eye, which was what Variant became, because the name was already taken, right? It spun out of 989. Smed was able to incubate it within that, and then I think you'd have to ask Smed really for sure. I don't know 100% for sure. This is my recollections from talks with Brad, right? Of they started making this game. It didn't really align with what 989 was, or that portion of Sony aligned with. And they were like, well, we'd like to take the IP and the property we're building and spin out. And they spun out into their own company and then got reacquired later after it was a massive success, right? Like, I remember Brad talking to me about how the projections for EQ1 were like, man, we're going to be so awesome and do so well for a game if we can just get 10,000 subscribers for 6 months. That was the metric of success for EverQuest 1. So imagine that when you end up with, you know, during my time period, it was at least 500,000 subscribers paying $9.89 a month. That linked back to 989 Studios, and then later $15 a month, which was a huge controversy when we raised to that.
Yeah, and I know there's been an article shared around in chat a few times. And it covers like that origin and the back and forth and Kelly Flock's involvement and then the whole breakaway. So if that gets shared again, then
I mean, if you can get Smed to come on here, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to share. I mean, he was the guy in the room where it happened. He made it happen. I mean, EverQuest would not exist without Smed. I don't honestly, I've had like 3 conversations with Smed my entire life, and one of them was at Brad's memorial, and that was probably the longest one I've ever had in my life with him. I don't know Smed well, but
I'd love to have him on, but I'm and maybe this is just a wrong recollection or whatever, but it goes back to the being 25 and an asshole. I don't know if I've burned that bridge back then, and I don't know how busy he is. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe one day.
I'm sure he's super busy, but every time I've ever seen him talk about EverQuest or recollect about those days, you know, he wants to talk about it. He's proud of it. He should be proud of it.
He should be, yeah.
It wasn't just Brad that made this happen. I mean, without Smed, there is nothing, right?
Absolutely.
None of this happened, right? Like none of it happened without Smed.
Yeah. Again, huge appreciation. Going back, if I could go back and be more appreciative, man, I would. But yeah, so at some point I'll probably reach out to him. We'll see. It's weird too because he's still the big boss. So I'm like, I got to get the shit together on the stream a little bit. Got to make sure that I know how to size a Discord window properly. So we'll do some more iterations. Constantly EQ, thank you for your Prime sub. Sitzal and Constantly EQ, thank you for following. All right, so back to some more questions because they keep coming in. Let's see. Nick asks, what did you advise Visionary Realms to do with Pantheon? Are you still helping them?
So my position is, so I'm still available to advise them. I'm not advising them in a gameplay capacity. They have that under control. They have their vision for the game. I will give, snippets here and there, but I'm primarily there to help Chris Rowan, the CEO, out with any sort of production questions he has, that sort of stuff. So I've been working more with their producer and their CEO on some higher level stuff, not game design stuff, right? Like I don't want to insert myself in any of that. They have their vision, they have their game, and if they have questions about how you publish a game or how you do this or how you do that, that's the sort of stuff I've helped with here and there. And I was having normal weekly calls with the producer and stuff like that and going over stuff. I have a full-time gig right now, so I'm not doing that as much, but I'm always here available for them. But for those of you that are going to ask me about the gameplay of the game, no, I'm not going to insert myself in any of their gameplay. If they ask me, I have all kinds of opinions, and I'm not going to share them here.
Cool. Good answer. Thanks. I think that covers it. And I know a lot of people have questions, but I've also said, hey, I'll try to reach out and we'll see. I know people in chat, they know folks there, so we'll see what we can do. I'm honestly just catching back up again on Pantheon and watching people's videos and stuff. It looks awesome. Anonymous Gifter gave Jay Smedley a tier 1 sub. Well, thank you, Anonymous Gifter. And if this is the Jay Smedley we were just talking about, well, you heard what I said. Love to have you on at some point. Sorry if I was an asshole when I was young. C. Goodman.
I wonder if that is Smed, if anyone remembers this story that also is listening. I always confuse Jeremy Ellis and Jeremy Albert, but one of the Jeremys was a GM at the time, and there was a spam the chat server. Remember the chat server before you logged in? Because servers were down. There was a time, this is apocryphal even to me, right, where Smed or someone like him said, hey, everybody spam it. We need to stress test this server. So people start just, ASDF, ASDF, whatever. But this individual starts spamming, kill your mother, kill your father, hail Satan. Kill your mother, kill your father, hail Satan. Something like that. And I think he was summarily fired and then rehired like the next day.
Was he
That's a
rehired?
story that I've been told. Yeah, that's a story I've been told. It was one of the Jeremys. If one of the Jeremys, if you're out there, maybe you know, or maybe if you have one of those guys on that knows, maybe I'm just making that story up in my in the fever dream that was working at Sony back in the day.
So Ellis may be on soon, so I have to. I'm gonna make a quick note. Kill your.
I think it was the lankier of the two.
Then that would be Ellis, and that seems like maybe something silly he would do. No offense, Ellis, if you wouldn't do that. So I made a note to follow up with him on that. Right on. So another.
It was one of those things that people thought were the lyrics when you played heavy metal backwards. It was something like that. That's what he's.
Yeah. It seems reasonable to spam that, but potentially triggering. So.
Oh, it wasn't Hail Satan. It was Worship Satan. Sorry.
Worship Satan. C. Goodman. Bill, when designing EverQuest or any quest really, were there some guidelines on how often a mob, for example, a mountain giant patriarch can spawn, or was it just decided by each individual working on the quest? How did you decide things like that?
Each individual working on the quest, like everything back then was.
Exactly. And how did you decide though?
I mean, so we had the standard calculations. Like we had a little spreadsheet. Each of us, well, some of us had a little spreadsheet that said, "Hey, here's how many times this item will enter the world per day if the monster is killed at any given time." Like that was the thought process for balancing drops and the percentage of the drop rates. You'd look at like, okay, we assume that players are going to kill this thing 100% of the time. We want this item to enter the world this amount of time, right? So you just do a little bit of quick math and you get, oh, this is the drop rate that's going to be. Cool. One player per week is going to get this epic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. And let's see. Just a quick shout out as well. Scorn and Bonnie, thank you so much for sending me the questions over in Discord. It's a huge help. I know it's a lot of work. Thank you. So then, Bunny, you've added, Nick asked, Bill, do you think that MMOs could still learn from MUDs?
I think they still are learning from MUDs, whether they know it or not. I think there's not enough people looking back far enough, but there's all kinds of innovation still happening. I mean, people are recreating features from 25, 30 years ago still. So yeah, they can definitely learn from MUD still.
Right on. Next question would be from Ixar Monkey. Who formulated the quest for Eye Patch of Plunder? Thank them for 4 days of not sleeping while camping Stormfeather.
I may get this wrong, and you'll have to ask them. I think it was Bill Coyle.
Oh.
I don't know for sure. I know he owned the zone. I think he owned the zone the Stormfeather was in, but I could be wrong. What were the stats on the Eye Patch of Plunder? Who wanted it? Was it a rogue type item? I don't remember. It's been so long.
Chat knows all this stuff. Clicky haste.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I feel like Bill was involved with it, but I don't know for sure. I really don't know for sure.
Well, I wrote a note.
Apprentice out of nowhere.
That did happen from time to time. Let's see. EverQuest Forever asked, did you create Winglock's manly purse item in Kale?
Yes, I did. So Wenglox is named after one of my best friends, Wen Laws. So I immortalized him in the game. He is this guy, I love him to death, but we also call him the Master Coupon. He always has a coupon for something, right? Like back in the day, at least when we were, living down there and young and whatnot. So like, if, these days, if you have social anxiety and you don't want to order a pizza, you don't call, right? You go on your cell phone and do it. Back then it'd be like, hey, Wen, do you want 3 slices of pizza? Call for us so we don't have to call the people. He's like, yes, and I've got a coupon for that. Let me make it better. So he had all those coupons in a little, not like an actual man purse, but we'd give him shit about it, call it his manly purse. So that's exactly where that item came from, a person that I knew and loved dearly.
Awesome. Sitzal asked, Bill, did you work on Luclin? It seems like there's a framework for players to ally with one of the factions there, Vampire Seru Kata, that wasn't fleshed out.
I came onto Luclin after Luclin shipped and completed a zone that players were told was completed at ship, called Exlol. Sorry. I still feel bad about that zone.
That is a very Luclin answer, too.
But if I recall right, I did not make the key quest, so somebody else can take all of the blame for that. That is not me. I remember the key quest being almost as egregious as the zone.
Ryan, you're in chat right now. Was that you? Did you do that? Not to call you out. Yeah. So he is in as Katerin.
Okay.
We'll just say he did it.
Not trying to shit on your key quest, but I remember getting hate mail about it and being like, I didn't do that. And as in hate mail, I mean like posts on the safe house saying like, oh, why is it this way?
Wait. They're saying Ryan fessed up. Well, I don't see it. I didn't see it. You already outed yourself. Oh my goodness. We'll talk offline. I think I do have a story about that key quest because I was doing that quest as well, and I was like, who in the hell implemented this quest? Oh my god, I can't believe I'm. Yeah. So anyway, next question. Shingex, did you design the? No, we've already skipped that. We just talked about Shingex's question about the VT key. Vulork, Bill, is there an item on Vulak's loot table named after you? If so, which one? Covered that.
No,
sorry, Vulork. Hi, Carlton. Is there any info on the Chelsith stone, like those weird symbols that show up everywhere here and there?
I don't know the reference.
Yeah, that's early EQ, like original EQ, right? Or no, is that a Kunark reference? Anyways, chat will let us know. Yeah. Shots fired. It was hard because the zone wasn't done and we couldn't let people in. Ryan said. Oh my god. Yeah, we'll handle that some other time, but yeah, it's funny when that happens. But not really. Nick asked, Bill, what work did you do as an advisor? We already covered that one. EverQuest Forever, who designed Tower of Frozen Shadow?
Jason Polk, I think. I feel like it was Jason Polk. I could be wrong. I feel like it could have also been Amanda. I could be wrong.
When you said Jason...
Yes. Jason. Jason was becoming the AP at the time, but he still had to do design work, I believe. I feel like he did, in fact, do it. Schmokey Schmoke? Those are words that instantly conjure him in my mind. Great guy. Love him to death.
I remember the cube. I remember that. I remember that was still during my customer service sneak up and down and ask questions phase. Cool. Yeah. Let's see. Next question. And I'm writing notes on some of this stuff because I'll continue to reach out to people. And
I mean, Lawrence was still a P pointer back then, but he might have done something. But I remember Kayvon doing some stuff on that. I feel like he did. I feel like he was the apprentice that got stuck in with that. So maybe Polk owned the zone, but Kayvon did a bunch of the work. We can talk about that with Shrey's the Temple at some other point in time. I don't know if you've discussed that.
I've only, I tend to just convey positive thoughts here. I'm a very positive guy right now. And so I'm
going to share a story. I hope it doesn't embarrass you or the other person too much, but there might have been a confrontation over who did most of that zone at some point in time during one of the famous parties that would happen back in the day.
Ooh, I'm always curious because I can't remember shit these days. And so I try not to claim anything, but then somebody will say, didn't you do like Ryan did it? And I was like, I guess I did do that. So who knows?
I know that zone was more than one person did that zone. And
yes.
You were one of those more than one persons for that zone. And I remember you crunching a lot for that
Yes.
zone. Like when I was not on that team at the time and was living in a land where I didn't have to crunch all day, I remember walking by and seeing you working on that zone. So
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So if there's any, in terms of question as to whether or not I worked on the zone, I still claim to, like, I do thoroughly claim the basement at a minimum.
yeah.
So yeah. No, I remember, man, it's funny.
If we were having a beer right now, you and I could discuss that more. We could even have a beer with that other individual. I like him a lot. I ran into him at GDC a couple years ago. And
He's a great guy. He's funny. I still remember the quote though. My goddamn snake man won't move.
exactly.
Oh man. All right. And we'll have to drag him on at some point as well. He's still in the industry and around. But yeah, I'm claiming the basement. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And the curse is it's legit mine. Like that one, because I had to take the punishment for that one. So let me get back into questions. I clicked on the wrong thing here. Sorry, chat. Let's see. Are you guys, Kafa asks, are you guys still connected in any way with the current managing company or the company managing Daybreak or Daybreak? No, I'm not.
No, not whatsoever. Like I don't think I really actually know anybody still there. Maybe I do. Maybe I just don't know I know them. But I've been really bad about keeping in touch with people that I've worked with a long time ago. Like I didn't even have LinkedIn until Tryon disappeared, right? Like I just didn't. So I'm not a big Facebook guy. I kind of keep to myself. So, you know.
Yeah, I was excited when you appeared. Like whenever there was like an opportunity to sort of like run into you online or whatever, it was a big deal. Because you know, the reality is during that period, you were one of those guys I looked up to, right? Like Ellis showed me the tool for the first time. You know, I sat next to Steve in the CS pit and like really got mentored a lot by him during that phase where he was in CS, but also hammering in like the ring war and stuff like that. And then you guys were, you know, an inspiration to me. So it's always nice to catch up.
Yeah, it's amazing to just be able to think about those days and reminisce and not be by yourself in a corner talking about it. Anytime I can talk with somebody that's worked on this stuff or has experienced this stuff, it's always great. I mean, it's also like, it gives me some vibes of like the first fanfare I went to. I remember going to it before I got really drunk in Boston on like the first day, and I'm walking around with my dev badge turned around so people can't know that I'm a dev, and I'm watching EverQuest. It's the craziest things I've ever seen in my life, because you'd see like this 40 or 45-year-old lawyer like wearing a suit at the fanfare, right? Like dressed up, and like this 15-year-old punk kid talking to him. And the 15-year-old punk kid is the actual expert, right? And this older guy is listening to him as a source of authority, right? And just how much everyone loved the game. Everyone was brought together by it, right? I'm not saying like communities these days are toxic. It's a different world we're in now. The internet is much more connected now than it used to be. But just seeing how EverQuest has touched people, even back then on the team, right? It's always like super humbling. It's like, wow, I got to be part of something that did that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was I wouldn't say I got lucky. I mean, I made a lot of choices to land there, but I absolutely recognize the privilege that came out of landing there at that time.
Yeah, we got some experiences that you can't really replicate.
Absolutely. We got more questions. I told you there's going to be a lot of questions. And I'm keeping an eye on your time as well. Yeah. So, Oin32, was Vanguard something that Sony just decided not to fund anymore, or was the transition into zones the issue? By the way, I love the diplomacy system in that game.
The Vanguard story is a lot more complicated than we can really completely cover in 45 minutes. The really short version of that, as I recall it, was, this is not laying blame on any companies, anybody else, anything like that. This is my recollection, folks. So if somebody at Microsoft hears this and gets pissed off at me, I'm sorry. Microsoft had a certain strategy when we originally partnered with them, and they had some regime changes within Microsoft as to what their who was running games and whatnot. So basically, our advocate within Microsoft disappeared at one point in time, and their strategy shifted away from MMOs. And they were looking at the competitive landscape and saw, this juggernaut called World of Warcraft heading down the pipe, and we ended up, Vanguard was very vision driven, and that's good and bad. But the vision didn't meet up with what they were looking for anymore. Plus the regime change, so that left us in a lurch. And then, I don't know exactly how the conversations between Brad and Smed came down to get us that bridge and get us part of that family again. But things changed during development. It was not that was not as planned. None of that was as planned. It is a miracle that Vanguard shipped at all. And thank you for your part in that, Smed.
And dude, that's another thing. You saying that reminds me. Like, Smed was always so good about bringing people back in the fold, right? Like when that opportunity was there. Yeah, and that happened with product, and it happened with just individuals. So right on. Let's see. New question. It's another one that I think may be after your time. Bulork asked, what was the design philosophy of removing existing... Oh, no, actually, maybe not. Existing weapons in VT and leaving only Akiva Bane weapons. Were you... Yeah, I think that changed after. Yeah.
If it changed after the fact, I was gone because shipped the zone. The zone went live a couple weeks after I left.
Yeah. So I think that would be a question for Rich if and when he comes in. I don't think he did the actual work. That may have been John, but... or I may be wrong on that, Ryan, you can correct me. So Ixar Monkey asked, who came up with the idea that the gray is the only outdoor zone above water on the moon that requires enduring breath?
I remember walking by people having that discussion while smoking. So I wasn't a smoker, but I would walk down there because I was always bitter about the amount of smoke breaks people would take as a non-smoker. So I just go hang out with them at a certain point in time, maybe have a soda or something.
If I can interject, God bless those smoke breaks. So as a aspiring apprentice, like I wanted to get a job as an apprentice when I was in CS. Yeah. Everybody hung out.
That's how Burke got it too. I cannot.
I didn't smoke, but I went out there anytime I could when I saw everybody was smoking or hanging out there, so I could just go, "Hey, what's up, guys? Need me to do some free work?" Jaspers, thank you for the follow. Welcome. Next question. Beavers JJ, was the bread quest intended to make to be able to get to level 50 with? I remember people doing that.
There were so many things that were never intended in EverQuest, so I sincerely doubt that was intended. Like, I'm sure somebody's been on here, or you guys all know, like, Stain Death pulling was not designed to be that way. It just became how the game was played. So as later designers came on, for example, that's how the game's played. We embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Goodman, another question. Which epic quest is Bill most proud of? How does it feel knowing people are still running through these quests 20 years later?
I mean, honestly, I look back at those quests and I think they're pretty crap by today's standards, obviously. Like, and anytime I look at my own work, I'm like, wow, that's pretty crap, especially writing, because I'm not a good writer. I think I like the Warrior epic the most. And I recall when those quests came out, right? The safe house was basically where you went to talk about EverQuest, right? If you were having serious discussions about it. And the thread on the Warrior epic quest actually crashed the safe house. It got that big and that long. Like, it crashed their software and it was down for like a day or something ridiculous. So I'm still proud of not crashing the safe house, but like that, like, it was like a 3,000 page long thread or something ridiculous. It was absolutely bonkers watching people figure this stuff out and see what's going on and connect the dots that even I had not dotted. So yeah.
Yeah, if you get a chance to pop into chat sometimes just randomly and lurk, you will see so many dots connected that I'm like, Oh, okay, yeah. There are some people in here that really know their shit. All right, new question. And yeah, congrats on crashing the safe house in a fun way. I used to love that site. And we have constantly EQ. Is the rumor that the original islands in Vanguard were only a small slice, basically a starter area?
That
Yeah.
is misleading in the statement. So Vanguard as it shipped was not the entire design. So in the high level design document, which I may or may not still have a hard copy of on paper somewhere, there are multiple other continents which were planned for expansions. Um, so when you hear the word starter tossed around, it depends on who's saying the word starter. Like if Burke and I were talking about it, that would have a different context than what somebody outside of the team might know or understand, or even the later designers that were on the team might have. But the intent actually originally was to have the three continents. Like Kojan, the Asian themed continent, was way, way super scoped down on what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the same size as the other two continents. And then there was what I think we called intermediary zones or intermediary continents, which were going to be like either if we had time or the first expansion. And then there was an advanced continent, which was massive and gigantic and ridiculous, and no team on the face of the planet was ever going to be able to build. That was supposed to be much later expansion. Like the vision for it was much bigger than the reality of what a team could build at that time with any sort of reasonable budget. Like that would have been a $300 million MMO to make that sort of stuff. And it was not a $300 million MMO, guys. It was expensive, but it was not $300 million.
Right on. Let's see. Kemp asked, with a lot of chaotic development back then, do you think it made games better as opposed to the very controlled gameplay experience in modern games?
I don't think it makes it better. I think it just makes it different. You're getting a very
Yeah.
different flavor, and different people like different things. So there's people that love the flavor of the original EverQuest, and there's people that don't, right? I mean, you can look at the engagement numbers of things like World of Warcraft versus EverQuest, and you can see how people are voting with their wallets, right? Like, I love parts of World of Warcraft. I played the shit out of it as well. A lot of time in Lich King, but it's a different experience. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like as a game developer, I want to make cool stuff that people play and is fun and really engaging. But you have to pay the bills, right? Everyone has to pay the bills, so it's a real challenge. Like I could get deep in philosophy about like for those of you who don't know, like I'm the guy that did the free to play conversion for Rift. I am directly responsible for anything you may or may not like about that, and there's probably a lot of hate out there. Like, yeah, I've done loot boxes. I've done all that stuff. I've been evil. I have had to hit metrics. Like I've had moments in my life where I hate having to hit a number, but we need to do that so other teams can survive, so the team I'm on can survive, so a company can survive. It is an incredibly challenging situation to be put in, right?
Yeah.
And I know Hartzman was on here talking a little bit about that, but like, you know, when you know you're going to hit X number and you're told to hit 20% more than that, you have to do some things you don't want to do. And I don't feel good about doing those things, but hey, a bunch of people got to keep their jobs a lot longer because we did those things.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there as a producer, right? I've worked in that situation as a producer where it was, hey, we're not only hitting our numbers, we're surpassing our forecast, but the company needs to push another 20% and it needs to happen this month. And the only game we can look at right now that's capable of doing it is yours. And so when you have to go back to the team, it's a tough thing to do as a leader. It's hard on the team. You know what you're doing to the player base. You know the team's not happy about it. Like no team in those situations going, oh, yay, right? Like, I think one of the things I'm hoping will be a takeaway from some of these streams is just reinforcing that humanity on the team side. Like people, the folks working on games, for the most part, especially the games that I've worked on, probably you've worked on, love games, love their fan base, hate to disappoint their fan base, don't want to be evil, don't want to be shitty, They're not doing it just for the money, and so those things are tough. And so when you see it happening,
money, we'd all be engineers working in tech.
right? You'd work at a banking software.
Exactly. I mean, I could have like my degree was like database management stuff. Like I did a contract right out of college for 1 week and got paid $5,000 in 1999. And what did I do with that money? I went and bought a computer and played the shit out of EverQuest. Right? Like I could have stayed on that track and done something totally different with my life, like made quote unquote made something of myself. But no, I'm doing this sort of stuff. So
Yeah, and I was just waiting for folks in chat to like come out and be like, "Wait a second, dude! I work in banking software. I'm not making." So sorry, I didn't mean to generalize. We've got 1 or 2 more questions in the list, and then we'll probably just go to scanning chat because we know that we're running close on time now. We're about 30 minutes out, depending on what you can stay for. Thanks, Scorn, for the heads up on that. Bunny, you passed along 910 Never Sleeps Again's question. After playing a few weeks on Classic on a TLP, do you think Dark Paw Games is doing a good job with the brand? What do you think they could do better? So that may be aimed at me, but Bill, if you want to start,
so I'm not playing it, and I'll be super blunt. I don't think I could emotionally handle going back and playing EverQuest at this point in time for any number of reasons. Of like, even playing Luclin after I left the team was difficult for me because of how the game continued to evolve in different ways, and everyone put their own stamp on things, right? And it became there's many aspects of different things that I love, right? But it became less the game I loved over time. It became more disconnected from for me than it was for the current fans or the current team, and the current team was the current fans, et cetera, and so on and so forth. So like, it's just very difficult to go back and like recapture the elements that I really cared about at that point in time, and for me to have the time to invest in that, right? Like, I'm a father now. I have a 4.5-year-old. It's very hard for me to actually commit the amount of time that I would need to commit. Like, for me to feel okay playing it, I would need large chunks of time to be able to play.
Yeah, from my end, it's mainly just like so far we're in the old world, so it's been a lot of nostalgia. We've had the time on our end. My girlfriend Jasmine decided that she would play EverQuest with me to allow me to like show her some of the stuff I've been babbling about. It seemed like a good opportunity to stream it as well. So I've enjoyed going back. I'm looking forward to Kunark a ton. I'm looking forward to, Velious and Luclin, just kind of going through. As we get closer to the stuff that I worked on, I'm going to be curious to see what that feels like.
Yeah, you're gonna experience a weird wave of nostalgia, and if somebody has put some peanut butter in your chocolate. I mean, like, I remember, like, this is gonna sound really like prima donna bullshitty stuff, right? But like, remember how we were talking about earlier, folks that are listening, like, you owned the zone that you worked on, like, you owned it, it was yours. Like, an apprentice added a quest mob to Kale without talking to me, and I'm walking around in game and see this, and it was like, I was madder than hell. I was madder than all hell. Like, everyone on the team knew who the hell did Kale. Just have a 2-minute conversation with me. Let's get the mob added. But it was somebody crossed the line of what you don't do back then on EverQuest, which was hop into my zone and change something. So that was not something that happened back in the day. Let's put it that way.
So if that was me, I apologize.
No, it was not. It was not you. I know who it was.
You already addressed it. Bobby Bick. Bill Fisher, did Kale? I have questions.
Ask away.
I can hear frantic typing.
Type.
In the meantime, I want to try to show you this image that was sent over. What do you know about this? Anything? It's kind of blurry.
I don't know what that is. Is that a banner with the symbol on it? I mean, one of the original EQ artists might know something about that. it probably was just something cool that they made. That said, both, as I recall, both Trost and Brad, I didn't know Trost super well. Worked with him on EQ2 for a while. There was some like bigger picture lore stuff that they always wanted to inject in the game that never really got communicated out to anyone. Like it's probably hiding in a document somewhere, or they talked to an artist about it and it just got made, and we may never know.
Okay. Well, we've got Bobby's question just popped up in chat, and I've got a couple more. I've got 3 more behind the scenes there. So,
there probably was supposed to be a story between Velcator and other folks, but I don't remember what it was supposed to be because we had to crunch to finish it all. So it's probably just one of those things that got left on the cutting room floor completely. Or I wanted to add and never got around to. Like I wanted to do, there was like a quest line I remember wanting to add to one of the dragons in TOV, in North TOV, where you could actually talk to them and do something. And they were the monk dragon. I don't remember the names anymore. I don't remember this stuff. I remember wanting to build this and not building it now. Now that you say that, like thinking about that, yeah, I think it was Feshlak. Yes, it was actually meant, I believe I was going to do it for monks. So I have this vague memory of like, as a monk, you were supposed to be able to walk up to him and talk to him because you would feign death in front of him and then duel him in human form. He was supposed to change into a human and duel you one-on-one and give you a reward. Never did it though. So my bad. Like the amount of crunch that had happened by that point in time at the end when I wanted to do stuff, if you look through the names of items in North TOV, you will start to see my mental state at that moment in time. Yes, I'm not going to say any more than that, but feel free to go look through those item names. Not the ones that are on Vulak or anything, just other random drops and other stuff in the zone and rewards from the other dragons.
So a behind the scenes question, Shaka Bread, have you done any personal projects, any games? Apologies if this was asked already, just rejoined.
No, I've never done anything indie. Everything I've done has been large scale online stuff. I'm working with a startup right now on some cool stuff. It's in stealth mode, so I'm not going to talk about it. Maybe in a few months we'll talk about that. Maybe not.
Cool.
But no, I haven't done any of that small scale stuff. It's like even having some time off last year, like to just not do anything. I didn't do that sort of stuff. It's not my jam really.
Right on. Let's see. Nick asked, do you think an MMO with the scope of Vanguard will ever happen in the future?
I think if someone, it will take an individual that has a metric crap ton of money that wants to make that game. I do not think there will ever be an investment group or venture capital that does that, right? It's going to be somebody with their own money that says, I want to make something to that scale. So if any of you guys win the lottery, like a really big one, like a Powerball, you can hire a team to make that probably.
Yeah, let us know if you come up. Yeah, if you land like $500 million or whatever, and you're thinking of ways to spend it, we know people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's a bad idea. It's a risky bet, right? It's a very risky bet to make something that large, right? Like I think a lot of stuff is moving towards niches these days, and people finding their niche and finding what they want to play. Like, it sounds kind of crazy, like when you hear the founders of Riot talk about League is a niche game. They are right. League is a niche game. It's a friggin' massive niche, but it's made for a certain type of person, a certain type of player. They're not trying to appeal to everyone, right? So
right.
I think it's harder and harder to make games that appeal to everyone in every single way. And it's just not a good idea.
And we've been having that chat a lot on here, that very chat. So it's cool to hear it. Let's see. One more question from Oin32. How do you choose your next projects? Is there more research on the companies now?
So for most of my career, right, it's been joining a place that has something going already, and it's finding cool people I want to work with or cool opportunities. and to be blunt, right? Sometimes it's like, who's willing to offer you money to work on something that's cool to work on, right? Like, do you want to work with these people? Do you want to go be in a foxhole with these people? Do they sound convincing about what they want to do? When all those things answer yes, it's great. I mean, I spent 9 years at Tryon, guys. I loved working with everyone there. I loved what I was doing, a vast majority of the time. Like, I don't hop around the industry. Let's put it that way.
Right on. Another question from Inhumanic. Bill, why statue idol Avatar of War? Was idol ever intended to have loot mechanics?
Oh, I don't remember back then, honestly. I'm pretty sure that I just put the loot where I knew the loot was going to go. And I couldn't have too many drops in the zone, right? I couldn't be Monty Hall. So, like, one of the things you have to understand too, like on the EverQuest team back in the day, getting access to the item database back then was a big deal. It was a separate database, and you had to have separate permissions to get in. And at that point in time, in like that period of time, I was the fastest person to get access to that database, like from my start date to getting access, and I never got it revoked. And like there was other people that had their access revoked or got in trouble for making loot too good or giving out too much loot. Emails from Roger Uzin that I very much remember regarding certain zones of. I'm going to do a little bit of a Roger impression here. For those of you who don't know him, 1% does not mean what you think it means when it's on every monster in the zone. Yeah.
Good impression.
Yeah. No, that's not possible. That impossible, what you're asking. No.
So, new question, because we had a couple more pop in. XR Monkey, Bill, you have a 4-year-old child. If and when you get more time, will you introduce your little one to EQ1?
To EQ1, if it's still around in a few years, which I hope it is, I'll probably show her some of it, or at least show her some videos of it. I don't think we'll play that game together. She plays a little bit of World of Tanks with me right now. It's pretty cute. I have an extra mouse that sits next to my computer, so she'll grab the mouse and she's playing tanks with me. So yeah, she's a gamer. She's going to game, but we'll see if we end up playing MMOs together or not, or what'll exist by the time when it's more relevant for her to be doing that.
Right on. So Frank the Bank, I did not miss this when it scrolled by, but thank you, Scorn, for posting it here. Bill, did you know that people traverse VT by jumping through the ceiling?
I believe that's totally a thing that could happen. Yeah, I might have done it myself at some point in time.
And yeah, didn't we discuss this earlier? I think some discussion of this maybe on the VOD. I may be wrong. Let's see. The question seemed to move. Hashpipe, what is your favorite item you remember from when you were playing?
Oh, man. That is an amazing question, right? Because I loved my Cleric Epic weapon as a player. But I also really loved the fact that, once the old world was no longer the thing, and you could go back and just kill Nagathyn and Vox, and when you're the raid leader, you get to distribute the loot however you want. And I was a benevolent dictator. That's how I treated the guilds. I love my Cloak of Flames, that it was sitting on my like level 25 rogue alt. Like, that item is awesome. I love it.
Cool. Keebs asks, if you had an opportunity that made sense to put your hands on EQ again, would you? Good question.
That is a great question. I don't have a good answer for that. If the stars aligned, I don't think I would be, completely adverse to it, but I think it would be, as I was describing earlier, like playing EQ, I think it might be a strange feeling because the game has evolved so much over the years, right? It's 20 years of history now, and my history with it is so far back. I'm not sure if if it would be enough of the same game that I would care about. Not that I would care about, but that I would be super psyched to be involved with, right? Rift was very much, another evolution of WoW and EverQuest, that sort of stuff, right? So making that same game again or making Vanguard again, I don't think it gets me the level of excitement that would be good for me and good for the people I'd be working with, probably. If that makes any sense, right? Like, I don't think I'd say no, but I don't think I'd be like, hell yeah, right?
There's this weird there's this thing about NORAS, right? So when I think EQ, it's like, all right, would I want to work in NORAS again? And that's sort of it in terms of that's the box. Like here's NORAS, but you get to make whatever you want. It's a slightly different question for me.
If it's working NORAS again, absolutely, I'd love to work in NORAS again. I'd in a friggin' heartbeat. Let me know if you've got a bunch of money and want to make an awesome game, and you own the IP. I don't know any of the folks down there. I'm not going to go pitch it to anyone. If that opportunity knocked on my door, I'd absolutely have a conversation, have some beers, and discuss what could be made. You know.
Oddly, the longer I spend in here running around, the more that is sort of something in the back of my mind. So if we can just get some of that Jeff Bezos money, then and the IP, that would be awesome. New question.
I mean, I like, for me, it's like it's the NORAS thing, right? It's the connection back to that. That's the key phrase right there, right? Like I've already made a spiritual successor to EverQuest. So.
Yeah. And so let's see. New question from EverQuest Forever. Did you observe the first LOS Avatar of War Zerg kill in GM Stealth?
I don't remember if I was there or not. I don't remember. If it was happening, if it was on like it, I could have been at Lawrence's desk when it happened. I don't remember. It's entirely possible I was there. I just don't remember.
Let's see. I think this one's going to predate us. Xbox fan, who taught the snakes to kick in EQ?
Roger Uzin.
There you go.
Roger Uzin was the combat code, as far as I'm concerned. Roger was the core of the server and the combat, and Steve Clover was the client, if I recall right. Like those were the guys. They were it. Like you would see them having conversations in the hall. I am the server. This is what I'm sending you. I am the client. I'm sending you this. And Roger was, at that point in time, before he went on to EQ2 as a designer later, super influential on EverQuest. Like I look up to Roger still to this day for his contribution, not just as an engineer, but to like the balance of the game and all of that stuff. Roger was very much the proponent of the NPC. Right, so like if you remember, Sean, going and walking back by a server box and looking at the terminal, like stuff like such and such, prints out such and such monster hates so and so much and wants to kill them, right? And then it shows the combat code, right? Like that's Roger. Like staring into the Matrix. If I stare into that in 50 years from now, right, I would still see Roger's face staring back at me. And he wanted to make the game a challenge for people. It wasn't just Brad's vision of make a challenging game and all this other stuff, right? Like Roger is one of these guys that's so behind the scenes in what made EverQuest great. He never gets up there and talks about it, unless it's with like a team member or whatever, right? But he was one of those guys really making sure there was game balance. Him and Palacio, when Palacio was on the product as well, right? Like they were like peas in a pod, and they were like making sure shit worked and making sure the game was fun at a base level and tuning the experience and all of that stuff. So yeah, if I don't know if you remember Roger much at all, but like the Great Book of Uzin, like we literally in my time period had a friggin' pamphlet. Bill Coyle was the keeper of it during my time period. It was this manila folder, and inside of it were emails from Roger describing how things work fundamentally in EverQuest, like flying kick of 2, like all the weird hacks and stuff in the game. Like, it existed in hard copy in the Holy Book of Uzin, and we treated it with fucking reverence. Because, if Roger got hit by a bus, that was how EQ worked. That was the stuff you needed to know. Like, I remember I got to get a page inserted in the Holy Book of Uzin because I was the guy that collaborated with Roger on Rampage and Flurry. Right? Like, so, here's how you do Rampage and Flurry. Roger sends an email out to the team. Here's how it works, guys. Like, that was my contribution to the canon of that Holy Book at the time. And yeah, and Uzin time units and all that other stuff. Like,
Yeah, the Uzins. I think I've mentioned the Uzins on the stream before, and then I think somebody made an Uzins calculator to make it easy for us to understand time. You mentioned Rampage and Flurry. That's one of the things I didn't get a chance to ask about. There's also the 32k hit point.
oh yeah, so fun thing, right, about back in the day. Like, so again, I've mentioned I was a friend of Brad's, right? So I'm playing Magic with him every Wednesday night, and we're playing the game, and we're like, okay, so we're making this expansion, and players are getting more powerful. Hey guys, how do we make monsters with more hit points? Like, try and enter it. Oh, 32,000. That's as high as it goes. And Roger's like, oh yeah, that's impossible to change. We can't do that. I'm like, well, how did they make the monsters harder in Vishan's Peak? And you get another Rogerism right there. This is the hack that I think it was Tom Wells used, right? He put a -1 in the regen value. So a -1 in the regen value meant it would regenerate the monster as fast as the server cycle would allow it to, unbound. So if the more people you had in the zone, the slower the monster would regen. That's how those monsters in that zone, in the old zones, were made harder. So those monsters had 32,000 hit points, but they were regenerating some random variable to like a quarter of their life or half of their life per server time unit. And the more people you brought, the easier it made it. The more lag you could produce on the server, it made it. So when I found that out, I was like, holy crap, that is not sustainable. We can launch an expansion with that. Roger, can we change this? No, that's impossible. No, we can't do that. It's impossible. Steve, is Roger right?
I'm actually picturing him now.
Roger's 100% right. We can never change this. We cannot change this. No, we cannot change this. It can never change. It's impossible. And I remember, like, I felt a little bad because I was like, well, I kind of explained it to Jeff, and Jeff kind of sides with the engineers on it, maybe or maybe not. And I just went to Brad's office and I was like, closed the door, sat down, like, dude, you had an engineering background. Like, you were once an engineer on this project. This isn't impossible, is it? Like, here's the problem set. And he's like, oh, I can see why they're saying that's impossible, right? Because they have to change every variable in the client and the server that uses this everywhere, and they don't want to do that. Oh, now that you've explained the problem and how it's being solved right now, yeah, I'm going to have them go change that. So Roger and Steve were probably a little salty that this associate designer went to the VP of the company, and told him about this problem and got him to get it fixed. Because a week and a half later, guess what? We didn't have a 32K cap anymore. They did it in a week and a half. It was work that absolutely had to be done. Like EverQuest, can you imagine playing in those expansions without having that? Like, what are you going to do? Add super mitigation as the mechanic? Like, I guess there's other terrible workarounds, but that was the right decision.
Right on. And thank you for conjuring up both Roger and Steve. For some reason, I also pictured Steve during that and could actually remember him again.
Yeah, no. Like,
and there's that sigh, just
yeah.
So
he's one of the nicest engineers I've ever worked with in my life, and I have to tell this story about him. Some folks may not care, but like during the development of Vanguard, he was one of our engineers. He really cared about it. He wanted us to make a great game. And at one point in time, the engineers as a group, as I understand it, were talking like, why can't the designers make quests faster? This doesn't seem right. Like, blah, 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 blah. And Steve just comes to my office and it's like, hey, so why can't you make quests faster? I'm like, oh, Steve, well, tomorrow you'll come to my office, we'll schedule the time, and I'll step you through the quest tool. And he did that, and he stepped through the quest tool. He actually used it to make a quest, and I have never seen him storm out of... I've never seen that guy actually angry in my life except for that moment in time. And the way I recall it, and maybe I'm misrecalling, is he then went and read the riot act to all the other engineers of like, you cannot complain about the designers not being able to make quests fast enough when you've given them such a garbage tool in order to do it, right? And then the tool got fixed and quest production increased by like 90% or something ridiculous. It's not like the tool became the best tool ever, but thank you, Steve Clover, for going through, using that tool and explaining to the other half, right? Like sometimes it's like designers over here and engineers over here and communication isn't perfect. Like, he made it happen. He did it. He made it clear to everyone how important that was.
Right on. And Ryan, I guess conjured a memory for you. Excel, yeah. The tools, the design tools,
tools,
Excel.
yeah.
Excel. And you know what? When I look back on it, I kind of love it. Let's see, dude, you were about 8 minutes out from your original 2 hours. So we've gone through this pretty quick.
Let me
If you
check my work Slacks and I only have
do
one
it.
notification right now. So I'll give you guys another 30 minutes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Let's go till about 12:20. Yeah, about 30 minutes should be good.
Okay.
And then I've got to bounce, and we can schedule another day.
Absolutely.
For this.
Absolutely. So new question. Oh, it just disappeared. All right. So I guess we covered that one, Scorn. So with that in mind, let's just look at chat. What do you guys got? I saw Zayd just roll in as well.
I want to tell a story to you that I don't know if you knew it or not, actually.
Probably not.
I watched one of your VODs the other day, and people were mentioning, Red Bull and drinking Red Bull and stuff. So Red Bull had just came out effectively around the time I started on EverQuest. And this was very near the ship date for Velious. Jeff, people were tired. We were super tired. And Jason was too tired. Jason, as the AP, was too tired to go and get stuff. And Jeff didn't want to leave the office at the time or had already gone to sleep. I don't remember. Not trying to cast aspersions. But anyways, I get handed the company credit card. And Kayvon, one of our apprentices, is told to go with me. And we're like, okay, good, to go get snacks for the team. Go get stuff. So we go to the local AM/PM, and there's Red Bull there. And we're like, oh, Red Bull sounds good. We got the card. We should buy it. And I'm so whacked out tired. And Kayvon says to me, Bill, how much Red Bull should we buy? And I just turn him in a stupor and go, all of it. And we bought $600 of Red Bull on the company credit card, every Red Bull that was in that place. And I swear to God, it was gone in the next 12 hours. So imagine a team of 20-ish people drinking $700 of Red Bull. I remember not sleeping for 2 days straight, at least. I remember sitting on the floor in Lawrence's cube, rocking back and forth. Do you remember those carpets, those old carpets? They had little designs on them.
Uh-huh.
Pretty neat carpet. I remember just going whoa, the floor is cool, dude. Whoa. I will never forget that. It was absolutely.
Yeah. That smell, the Red Bull smell. So my girlfriend hates it. She hates it. But every time I crack one open, I'm immediately transported back to that era.
Yeah, that's part of why there's an orb of a Red Bull or something like that, or the orb of red wings. I don't remember what it's called in TOV.
It is, dude. It is the smell of creation.
Yeah, the smell of creation, exactly. And that, honestly, Red Bull, I love you, but man, the flavor is not good.
It's not.
That was half of what kept me awake. Was the flavor was
It's special. It's special. So I do have that question on here for the Red Bull Kayvon company credit card story. We didn't get to it. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now I can close these out. Orb of the Crimson Bull.
Close the Juras. We're all good.
Oh my goodness. All right. So chat, we've got Bill here for a little bit longer. So
I have something else to share. This is still one of my favorite shirts. So this on it says Velious Launch Party, Las Vegas.
Oh.
It has, if you can see that, right? The box cover. So I've still got this, I've had this shirt longer than I've known my wife.
Was that at the Bellagio?
That's a great question, because here's the story about that. The EverQuest team was too busy crunching on the product to go to the launch party for it. So the EverQuest 2 team went instead.
Dramatic sound in the background for effect. But then it happened. That same thing happened again, right? Because
I didn't go to the Sony Christmas party because I was crunching.
Yeah, that too. That's right.
I think some of the apprentices did. I think Kayvon went and won a TV. Maybe I don't remember who.
That was the Christmas party, because I had just gotten there. That was the Christmas party at the Coronado Hotel Coronado, and all of you guys were still there crunching. Those of us that were in customer service got invited over.
You guys got to come to the thing because the prizes are awesome at these Sony parties, right? It was like win a big screen TV or something out of B stock, right? Like those deals back in the day were fantastic, right? Like 65-inch TV when 65-inch TVs were like something to behold, of like, oh my god, it's half off through the Sony discount. Just hope it's not broken because it was B stock, but
yeah, well, and I remember, like, I thought, because I'll admit I got to go to the party, I was in customer service, so I wasn't crunching yet. I'd yet to earn the privilege of crunch. And so, but then, like, when I came back, I could have sworn some salty, like some of you guys did appear at some point kind of salty, but I know when I came back and then read the mood of the team that was out there smoking, I was very much like, oh yeah, the Christmas party, I didn't go to that. So
I think the other one that I've told a few people this story, and I actually like Jose. You remember Jose Azaria, right? The QA head at the time. This is one of those things that's funny in retrospect, at least to me, right? There was a meeting that was had maybe a month before Velious released, and Brad and Jeff were not in the room, right? Like, so the team leader, the owners of the product were not in the room yet, but just the dev team was in there, and Jose was like, "We're going to start the meeting anyways. About we need to get better QA notes. We need to do all this stuff. You guys need to increase your quality." And then he said a phrase which nearly got him literally killed. Like I was getting out of my seat, which was, "Maybe you guys should consider crunching," to a room full of developers that had already been crunching for 5 months. And then, like, as people are getting out of chairs, Brad and Jeff walk in and de-escalate the whole situation, which was fantastic. Because like you could see it on Jose's face of like, he wasn't a dumb guy. He's a super smart guy, and his heart was in the right place, and he was 100% right.
Poor Jose.
A whole lot. Like, I'm not throwing Jose under the bus. Like,
no. He is a great guy.
I was in like, wait a minute, I've been crunching for 5 months, and some dude just told me to start crunching. What? What would crunch be from here? A person must die, right? Like, and he realizes as he says it of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not talking to the Sovereign team or something like that. I'm talking to a team
shots fired.
That's working all the time. Hey, Sovereign could have been a great game. Maybe somebody will make it someday. I mean, some people have made stuff like Sovereign. Just Smed, if you're listening, I feel like some of the projects that were thought of back then were so far ahead of their time. Like, you have been ahead of the curve, and the world just hasn't been ready for them. If the world had been a little bit more ready, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, right? Like that's my 2-bit thing. Like, I don't know Smed well at all, but like, just when I look back at all this stuff of like, yeah, MMORTS, that sounds awesome. Somebody's going to make that. Somebody wants to play that potentially. And the same thing with, elements of PlanetSide and whatnot, right? Like,
yeah,
super ahead of its time. Super ahead of its time.
Did you say that right as Nick was firing PlanetSide into the chat? It coincided. I don't know if you saw that, but perfect timing.
Like all that stuff. There's so much cool stuff going on. It was so, everything in the game industry was so much more Wild West back then too. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, there was even stuff that I don't think really people either know about or attribute with SOE at the time that was ahead of its time. That, like, I look at Casual Games, where Fister came from when he came onto the EQ team. He came from Casual Games, which was basically just killed. But it was, I mean,
Jeopardy and stuff made a lot of money.
Yeah, it was basically the thing that blew up on Facebook, 10 years, 12 years later. Yeah. All of that stuff. So, yeah, Sony was always ahead of the curve, and it really felt like it was like I'm trying to find the words that aren't like demeaning or anyway. It wasn't like, it felt like a garage style, like a giant garage game. You know what I mean? Like, there was, even when it was 700 people.
To me, I just see it as like, it wasn't like a startup, but it had some startup like elements with it.
Yeah.
Back then, before like, lean startup and all that sort of stuff was like codified, right? Like, there was a lot going on. There's a lot of great ideas, and I don't think all of it was execution, right? Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, the teams didn't make good games or whatever, right? But there was process issues. There was stuff that was just too early, stuff that maybe the fun could have been iterated to, given enough time.
Well, and in several cases, it was the tech wasn't there yet. Like we've talked about this a lot, where I'm like, I probably would have played EQ2 more had my machine run it better. I would have played Vanguard more had my machine run it better, right? Like stuff like that. So I'm scanning chat as well for some more stuff because I've seen some things pop in here. Let's see. Nick, the thing I was respect about SOE was that they were not afraid to be trailblazers. Without that quality EQ, plant side, etc., would have never existed.
Yeah, and don't forget like Tantalus and stuff like that, right? Like online games, dude. It's online, actually online games. Or Tanarus, right? It was Tanarus.
Tanarus, and there was another one that was wasn't there like there's like a top-down infantry? Maybe it was called infantry.
It was called infantry. It was out of the casual games group, right? There was infantry, and there was the space one as well. And I think Rod Humble was in charge of that stuff originally, right?
Yep.
I don't remember the name of the space one, like Subspace. No, I don't remember the names, but yeah.
Xbox Fan UK, EverQuest invented instancing? Well, not entirely. The instancing was an idea that at the time we took from Anarchy Online had single player instances that were procedurally generated mission spaces, I believe. But that was one of those things where we looked at it and went, this may solve some of the zerging problem and allow us to do other stuff. Can it be done? And then it eventually was done.
Right.
Hyperplasma Shortcake, how did it make you feel when the high-end raiders would get angry at the development teams for issues they were having? There's quite a few quotes from people like Kaplan that still float around. I get linked some even now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he actually has some great, in his current role, some great quotes about, hey, try and be nice to dev teams, because he was not nice to dev teams in the past, right? Like,
yeah, I can respect that.
I'm not going to try and throw any shade. He's super successful, super smart guy, makes amazing games, right? But hey, as a player, dude, you're pretty shitty, right? A lot of people were shitty, right? I mean, I remember getting from Alex, right? Like, you've got 14 days to fix your effing game, or my entire guild is quitting, right? Like,
we discussed that here yesterday.
So, like, it's easy to get an us versus them attitude. The attitude you need to have as a game developer is, I'm trying to create entertainment for other people, right? So we're trying to entertain them. We're trying to entertain ourselves and everyone else too, right? But like, it's real easy for people to get head down and get offended and whatnot, right? Like, you just have to go to what's the root cause of what they're complaining about? Is there something that you can fix? Is it something that's right to fix? Is it right for everyone for you to fix this thing or change this thing, right? Like, dealing with feedback is like a whole art unto itself of making sure you're solving the right problems for the right people in these online games, and as they get bigger and stuff, right? Like, you're just one persona out of many personas playing these games. And yes, of course, you personally feel like the game should completely cater to just you, but you know what? There's hundreds of thousands or millions of other people playing this product too. Hey, in some cases, like, hey, we fucked something up completely. Yeah, you're right. You should be angry that this mob didn't drop loot.
Or this thing wasn't done or whatever, for sure. I would say that it's in defense of a lot of people that haven't been in a situation where they've been part of the creative process and seen just the degree of subjectivity or the number of opinions. It's like, okay, you're just not aware of kind of what you're saying. I do remember there was a fanfare where we had a panel and somebody asked like a brutal question that was just like, why are you so stupid? And the question wasn't directed at me, naturally, because I never make mistakes, but in defense of the person that like did like implement or whatever, I asked the room, I was like, or I asked him, what is your solution? And he said his solution. I was like, does anybody in here, and it was like 200 people, does anybody in here disagree with that solution and have a different solution? And hands just went up. Cool. What's your solution, person number 2? Completely different shit. Is this guy right? Right? And we did that for a few times before. I was like, all right, I think we get the point here. So, and you're doing that with hundreds of thousands of players.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to like cry ever about player abuse. It comes with the job. But just to put it in perspective so people understand, like, so when I was, lead designer and then EP on Rift and stuff, right? Like, I would read the raw feedback reports literally every single day. The number of times I've been told to kill myself or that I should fire my team or I should be fired is a little bit too damn high. It sucks. I don't let it eat at me, but I am a human, right? Everyone that is reading those things is a human being. I think Hartzman has some of the best advice about like how to talk to players in your community and stuff, right? And it's just, I mean, he doesn't say this, right? But like, just don't be a dick, right? The Will Wheaton quote, just don't be a dick. And, Hartzman's advice is like, talk to people like they're your friends. Like if you're having a real conversation with them in front of you, just be a real person. Don't get offended. And, we're all like, yes, we as developers are on one side of this and players are on the other side, but we're all trying to play a great game or make a great game or be part of the same community. And I don't want to die. I don't want the players to die. I wish they didn't want me to die. But
Yeah. And I would say that despite some of the shit that was talked on forums or whatever back in the day, what I noticed was every time we had a fanfare and everybody was just kind of around each other, like I saw none of it. Like I there's the occasional sort of start of like, oh, I'm a little bit, and then we talk and it's like, okay, man, I get it.
Talk it through and people understand, like you become humanized, right? One of the terrible things about the internet and text is it allows you to dehumanize and just assume the worst thing about everyone on the other side. Like if there was a point in time on Rift where I had to beat revenue out of the players to keep things going, yeah, you should be upset with me. But hopefully you understand why I'm doing that. I'm not doing that to make myself rich and to buy like a Ferrari. Like I wish I had a Ferrari. I don't. I'm just a dude that works on video games. I've done quite all right. I'm not going to complain about it. But yeah, once you actually start talking to people face to face, it's so much better, right? Like we could go on a whole rant about like the internet as a whole and internet culture, but we're not going to go there today. Like,
no, and honestly, not too ranty here. Tend to be pretty upbeat. To your point, Vertigo Tea Party.
I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change the interacting with players. So
yeah, I do agree. Like better communication from the developers to the players. It's always one of those things to strive for and look at. And yeah, I think you have a point there. And that's something I carried with me through my career to date. Is we fuck stuff up, we tell them.
I have a Honda Accord because I sold my 2002 Honda S2000 when I had a child. And I love my child more than I love my car, but I miss my car.
Honda Accord. That's not one of the ones with the fin on it, right? I don't have a car.
I don't know if you ever saw my S2000. It was a little convertible.
Probably if you had it back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I got it when I was working on Vanguard, so
okay.
You might have seen it at a party or two. But
yeah. I miss my Toyota Tacoma. I sold my truck when I moved from Texas to Germany. I haven't had a vehicle since.
So you're living the civilized life.
Oh my God, it's so civilized. I just walk everywhere. That's why I'm thin and beautiful, and I eat baguettes. And what is it that Europeans do? Nah, but I do walk everywhere. That part's true.
Nice.
All right, dude. We still got 10 minutes, and I am. We could Finonius. Who are these devs? I played Rift and Vanguard. You're coming in at the tail end, buddy. Sorry. We'll have the VOD up and you'll be able to answer that question for yourself. Bill, do you have anything else for us while we still have 10 minutes of your time? And will you come back on at some point?
I'll absolutely come back on at some point. Line those questions up in advance. I mean, I have so many like little stories that can become big stories about EverQuest and my time on it. Of like this one, this I'm just going to tell a little story that I believe is true. Maybe from customer service days if this is true or not. So I played on Vishon, right? And that's where a majority of Japanese players played on. Like they just picked it as the server to play on. And I remember being at work and hearing about an issue that happened. And I think Brad told me this, right? He was like, dude, you're never going to guess what just happened. Because Brad also played on Vishon. It's like the GMs just had to like they were about to ban a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of Japanese players, and we then went and looked at the company and the credit card. And I was like, well, what do you mean when you look at the credit card? You're like, well, yeah, but here's the thing. We decided not to ban them all because, just give them temps. Because it was the Square company credit card paying for like 20 accounts. So the people that make Final Fantasy and now Final Fantasy Online, etc., I am told they were paying for like 20 or 30 accounts back in the day, like in 2000. And one of their players was exploiting him, was enough to get him banned. And then they looked at the credit card and were like, let's not ban him. That would be impolite.
Yeah. I'll just say, because I don't know the specifics, but it was always interesting, some of the bans that we ran into, where it was like, when you look at the account details and it's like, I've got to run this up the chain because I'm not sure I'm allowed to ban this person. Someone else is going to have to do that.
Yeah, that needs to go to a manager.
Yeah. I need to speak to my manager.
Yeah.
Come get some, 509. And Jaspers, if I missed you an hour ago, sorry, buddy. Both of y'all, thank you for the follows and thank you for being here. And Bill, thank you for coming on. This was just over 2 hours. What I'll do basically when I'm out tonight or maybe early in the morning, we'll see when I log off tonight. I'll just clip this down the way I did with Scott and Ryan so that we'll have the VOD and we'll post it. And then we'll talk a bit and kind of see like where you're at and what you're thinking in terms of coming back in. Always come hang out with us and chat if you have time. Check out the Twitch, get a little more Twitch familiarity. I hear it's the future. And yeah, man, it's been amazing catching up with you.
Reconnect. Good reconnect. I need to grill you on stuff at some point in time, but
yeah, we definitely need to catch up. Like you said a couple times, I'm bad. I've been really bad at keeping up with folks as well, and that's part of what I'm doing here. We're
in different places, and you're working with folks, and you're doing your thing, and that's life, right? Like,
and this is really for me more than anything. It was just I thought this might be a cool opportunity to do this, like reconnect. Honestly, the fact that there are people watching, thank you very much for watching us. But really, it was just a cool opportunity to finally like start getting some of these stories, get them recorded. We'll have some more come up.
We're not going to all be here at some point in time, and someone needs to hear this stuff. Like, there's plenty of stories I'd love to tell about Brad that that I could tell at some point in time. That are personal stories from me and him, not his family stuff, but getting that stuff out there. Like when I don't want to get all teary-eyed again, right? But like, it was a punch in the gut to hear that news. He was 10 years older than me, right? And hearing about Hutch and stuff like that. Like, not trying to end this on a down note, right? But like I'm reaching a point in my life where like friends are dying, and that's not cool. So I want to talk to friends I've had. Absolutely. No, and I don't think it's a down note. I think it's just, it's an important point. And yeah, that's the weird part when you start to get a little bit older, and and we don't want these stories to disappear. Part of life. Nah, man, it's weird. It's tough. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And this was awesome. And I will definitely come back. See you guys on the flip side. Right on. Thank you so much, Phil. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye. See you.